Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Generally, we'll have the first selectman, but as the new first selectman, he has just found out just how busy his schedule actually is. So that we had a couple conflicts or meetings that were really close to each other. So he may come in here towards the end of this meeting, and if he does, I'll introduce you to him, and I'm sure he'll want to say a few words. My name is Ed Gentile. I'm the Director of Public Works for the town of Darien. In the audience with me tonight is Darren Ostafine. He is the Assistant Director. Joe Canis, Principal Engineer for Ty and Bond, our consultant, is there, and Jonathan Ives, Senior Project Manager, sitting up front here. He will be doing the presentation for you folks tonight. But before we start that, I'd like to just cover some information for you so we can all get basically up on the same page. So why are we here tonight? Well, we're here tonight to present the semifinal design, which is approximately 75% complete for the Hanson Road Bridge replacement. So just a little background on that. Back in July of 2022, there was settlement found at the north end of the west bridge abutment on the Hanson Road Bridge. It's been determined at that time that this structure that spans the Stony Brook on Hanson Road must be replaced. We had a structural engineer come and look at it, do a report. We put in some countermeasures to protect the public, and we quickly went to contract with our consultant, Ty and Bond. So currently the bridge is safe to travel over, and we are continually monitoring the bridge to make sure it's not moving. Tonight our consultant will provide the design developed for the replacement. This design has already been presented to the DEEP and the Army Corps of Engineers. We did that in August. There were some slight modifications they had requested. We've made and implemented them already. The project still has to obtain the local EPC permit before any work can begin. At the end of the consultant's portion of the presentation, there will be time set aside for questions from the public that our consultant or town staff will attempt to answer for you. Just some notes on the project funding component of this project. As part of the design process, the design team was instructed to submit an application to the state DOT for possible funding from them for this project. The application was submitted in May 2023. On July 1st of 2023, the town received a commitment to fund letter from the state DOT as part of the state local bridge program. That's an incredible turnaround, and the consultant did a great job on that application, which is one of the reasons it turned around so quickly. This program will fund up to 50% of eligible costs that include engineering, rights of way, construction management services, and a contingency. Currently, the overall project cost is estimated at around $2.1 million, which means the grant will cover a little or approximately close to $1 million. It's a 50% match. And we talk about the process and why things take so long. So just a little bit of background on that. The design has worked its way through the process and quite similar to other projects that involve multiple regulatory approvals, property owners, and utility companies. Currently, there is coordination, ongoing conversation with 3 abutting property owners. Permanent and temporary easements from these 3 properties will need to be obtained before beginning any construction. In addition, an existing water main will need to be relocated as part of the project. Our consultant has included the Aquarian Water Company construction details and specifications into the drawing so that the work will be incorporated into this project and completed by one contractor, thus reducing the schedule and any conflicts. Please note that the Aquarian will pay for all costs associated with the water main relocation. The town will not pay for any of that. Our consultant will talk a little bit about that also tonight. In addition, recently we did receive some good questions and comments from the adjoining property owners. We will be reviewing those comments and will work with the property owners to address them appropriately. Furthermore, any next steps for us in the design process will absolutely include collaboration with the area stakeholders as we move forward through final design and bidding. So the presentation, I had a chance to look at it today, and it's not very long, but it is quite detailed and informative. So please be patient and hold your questions till the end, where we will open up the meeting to questions from the public. In addition, the video of the presentation will be posted on Channel 79's section of the town website, and the PowerPoint presentation will be located on the Public Works section of the town website. Okay, at this time now, I turn it over to Jonathan Ives from Ty and Bond.
Thanks, Ed. Again, you've met Ed and Darren. Again, I'm John Ives, and with me is Joe Canis from Ty and Bond. A brief agenda for tonight. We'll go over purpose and need for the project, existing conditions, some goals. We'll show you maintenance and protection of traffic scheme. We'll go over proposed conditions, funding, schedule, and questions. Starting with purpose and need, this is a bridge replacement project. We're not out here to do anything else. There'll be no roadway realignment or widening. We are here simply to replace the bridge. We're here because the supports have been damaged by scour. The arrow in that photo is showing a crack in the west abutment. I'll go deeper into detail on that further in the presentation. Moving on to existing conditions. At the top side, the bridge supports 2 lanes of traffic on a 30-foot wide roadway. There are substandard timber railings on the bridge and approaches. Currently, there's a road plate on the bridge where there was a washout, and traffic is restricted from the north fascia by these barrels. The bridge consists of a cast-in-plate concrete deck. It's supported on stone masonry abutments with cast-in-place concrete footings, and the bridge is founded on soil. Design plans for this bridge originally showed the bridge founded on timber piles. The plans have a little clouded note that say, piles omitted, the remainder of the bridge built according to plan. Downstream, immediately downstream of the bridge, there's a water main that's visible above the stream bed, right where this arrow shows. So that's an 8-inch water main for Aquarian that serves your homes there. It's above the stream bed and exposed to any floating debris and stream pressure. Here's a closer look at the west abutment. This is a high priority deficiency. The substructure has a rating of 2, which indicates critical condition. Both abutments are undermined, and the west abutment has settled. So this abutment is, the stem of this abutment is made of pointed stone masonry. There's no reinforcing within the stem. And when the bridge scoured out, it washed out the supporting soil beneath the bridge, and the abutment cracked. And this is at the north end. Above this are the traffic barrels and the road plate. So traffic is restricted from the worst part of this abutment. And the bridge is monitored constantly by the town. Darren goes out and takes a measurement once a week to ensure that the settlement is not accelerating. Some other deficiencies, these are things that we wouldn't institute a project for, but that we have to replace while we're out here. The bridge rail and guide rail don't provide adequate crash resistance. You can see when you're out there, they're very light, small timber. There's also no connectivity between the bridge rail and the guide rail. They appear exactly the same. There are no end treatments to protect you. So These are all things that we have to take care of with the proposed project. Quickly touching on hydraulic considerations, the bridge is over a FEMA floodway. That means that the channel is needed to convey floodwaters, and Joe can explain better. But we have to maintain the hydraulic opening with the proposed bridge. The design team understands the history of flooding in the area. You should know that upstream and downstream property owners are protected by town, state, and federal design requirements pertaining to flood elevations. So nothing done in this project can increase flood elevations. The new project must cause zero rise. A few goals that we have for this project. One, provide a durable, scour-resistant structure that's economical to build and maintain. Two, this is Darien. It's a beautiful area. We want to achieve a high aesthetic standard for the proposed structure. We want to, third, employ context-sensitive design while ensuring the safety of the traveling public. A context-sensitive design means that we're going to design the structure and the roadway approaches appropriate to the site. We have no intention of making this look like a state highway bridge, right? And fourth, we want to minimize inconvenience to adjacent property owners and the traveling public. So now I'll go over how we intend to meet these four goals. Don't concentrate too much on the figure here. First goal is to provide a durable, scour-resistant structure. So we're proposing to install a box culvert here. You will not see this box from the roadway. You will not see it from your property. The only way that you're going to see it is if you're standing within the culvert in the water, maybe going for a swim. So the scour resistance here is provided by the closed box. The existing structure does not have a floor on it, and the stream bed washed away and scoured out the abutments. They cracked and settled. That can't happen with a box culvert. The flow will be contained within the box. The box will have natural stream bed material in the base. That's for fisheries considerations. So we can get our environmental permits and build the project. This is very economical compared to a pile-supported structure, which would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars more than what we're showing here. Second goal was to achieve a high aesthetic standard. We intend to incorporate stone masonry facing on all visible portions of the bridge. So from the roadway, when you look at the bridge parapet, you will see stone masonry facing. That's what's on the end block here in this recent project that Ty and Bond designed in Greenwich for the Millbrook Owners Association. It looks similar to stone masonry walls throughout Darien and Fairfield County. Should look appropriate to the site and the surroundings. The third goal I mentioned, context-sensitive design. We do have to address the substandard condition of the guide rail. Basically, if we were to build a parapet with no guide rail attachments to it, that would be considered a blunt end. It would be a danger to a vehicle hitting the parapet. So what we need is a transition from nothing to a flexible barrier to an immovable barrier. And that's what the guide rail attachment does. So instead of putting a ugly galvanized W-beam guide rail like you see on all the state highway bridges, we're proposing to use steel-backed timber guide rail. What you see from the roadway is the timber here. It's Merritt Parkway guide rail, basically. And this is a compromise on behalf of the town and the state. It does cost more than W-beam guide rail, but we want to make the site look nice. Our last goal was to minimize inconvenience to adjacent property owners and the traveling public. We intend to do that by utilizing a detour during construction. This will give us the shortest construction duration, which I think is most important to the adjacent property owners. The detour length is less than 3 miles, so it is an inconvenience, but not too much of an inconvenience. I have a couple of figures showing the proposed conditions. Our project is only a couple hundred feet long. Again, focused on the bridge. This figure is showing Stony Brook flowing north to south through the site. The culvert is in the middle. We have a 30-foot wide road at the bridge that matches the existing bridge. And we go right back down to the existing roadway width on the approaches, which is narrower than 30 feet. Sometimes the question is asked, can't you make the bridge narrower? We almost never, ever decrease bridge width from existing, because that does not meet driver expectation from someone who's traveled through the site previously. The bridge has barriers on it. What we want to do is maintain the existing width, just to decrease the chance of an accident from somebody who's been through the site before and is expecting a wider bridge. Also, you'll see, I understand that this figure may be a little bit difficult. Let me grab my pointer here. All right. Immediately downstream of the existing bridge is the water main above the stream bed. The water main will be moved into the roadway and will go underneath the culvert. It will be out of sight. You'll never see it or know that it's there, other than when you turn the tap on in your house. A lot of times, water mains are tacked onto the side of the structures. That's ugly. Ed and Darren wouldn't permit us to do that. We're also working for Aquarian, and we were able to talk them into putting the water main under the culvert. That was a great victory for the project. And here's a side view of the bridge. Everything you see in this light shade of brown here is basically underground. What you'll see from the adjacent properties is a stone masonry facing on the walls and head wall. Here's your box culvert. And Merritt Parkway guide rail on the approaches, which is partially shielded at this property by the existing stone wall. Here's the water main going underneath the culvert in the roadway. The culvert will have a cutoff wall at the inlet and outlet to provide further protection against scour. Again, as Ed mentioned, this is funded under the state local bridge program. That includes funding for design, construction, rights of way, and construction inspection costs. Again, 50-50 split, 50% state and 50% town. It is a reimbursement program, meaning the town has to make the payments initially, and the state will reimburse immediately after getting documentation. And the estimated project cost is about $2.1 million, town share being half of that. And again, all utility work will be paid for by the respective utility companies. That's primarily Aquarian Water with the water main. If there's any utility work needed to shield or protect existing power lines, that will also be paid for by those utility companies. We're in the permitting phase of this project now, completing final design, incorporating public feedback. We intend to advertise in the early spring and go to construction in April. We intend to be complete with construction before the golf tournament in August. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions. Yes.
Stand up to the mic.
Yeah.
There's a TV.
So what I'm concerned about is the water diversion strategy during construction is to divert the water underground under the road, entering on the Weburn side and crossing under the road onto our property and through relatively near where we have our leaching fields for our septic system. So a little disappointed to not see any renderings of kind of where that's going to be. And our request has been that we have someone come out relatively soon to stake out where all that's going to happen so that we can see. Recently had Peace come out and stake out where we think the leaching fields are from 40 or 50 years ago, but no one's seen them obviously in quite a while, thankfully. But we're concerned about just making sure that there's no penetration of where those are on the property. I was curious as to why we had to divert that way. Now that I see the box culvert structure, I understand why it needs to be diverted that way and can't go through the right of way, but it seems like that's something that could have been avoided by not taking the box culvert approach. I know the cost piece, but yeah, it seems like that's what forced it to go underground.
So I understand. I do have some separate figures I can share with you. So you can see where the water handling is proposed to cross the corner of your property. That'll be well into the woods. Darren shared with me the town records on your leach field, and looking at that, I think we're at least 75 feet away from it, so well away from it. And I can give you some reference points, so when you go out and take a look, you can see exactly where that diversion pipe will be located. I can also give you some reference points so you can see where the end of the guide rail will be in the roadway.
And what's the size of that pipe? Because I know you mentioned you're aware of the flooding issues every now and then.
Right.
And I think in the 12 years we've been there, I think we've only seen probably one time water actually come over the road, one significant flood, but it does rush through there pretty heavily. So I think, Darren, I think we said something like a 2-foot wide pipe or something like that. Maybe it's a little bit bigger than that.
60 inches.
Yeah, so, okay, so we're concerned about that. I mean, they'll probably get more, the Weaver side will have more issues with that because they said there's not enough capacity, that'll back up onto their side, but we're worried about it coming over the road.
So the diversion pipe will be sized for the 2-year flood, which is considered standard practice for construction. If the water goes, so there'll be a cofferdam upstream and a cofferdam downstream. The pipe will go through the cofferdams to keep the job site dry. If the water rises above that, it still doesn't mean it's going to come over the road. It will just flow over the cofferdams and through the job site, and the contractor will just have to move any equipment that they have in there and move it back after the water recedes. So a 60-inch pipe, we sized, it's adequate to carry the 2-year flood. Actually, a little bit more than adequate.
That's not a lot of years.
I could add to that.
Done in 5 months.
Joseph Canis, I'm the project hydraulic engineer. And the 3-year flood was determined, and I believe, that's on the order of about 4 to 5 inches of rainfall. That's based on the DOT criteria in the 2000 DOT drainage manual. It's based upon a few different things: the length of the detour route. It's based upon if there are any structures downstream of the property, downstream of the project. It's also based on the duration of the project. So all these factors go in, and that's how that design storm was selected. And the 60-inch is what's needed to carry that 3-year flow event. But in the event of a larger flood event, John is absolutely correct. It would overflow the cofferdam and continue downstream. The contractor, as it'll be written in the specifications, that the contractor does need to keep tabs on the weather. And obviously, it's also in their best interest to make sure that their equipment is in there getting flooded either. All right. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Joe. I'll also point out there is some flood protection provided by the dam at the golf course, they are able to release some flow from the pond upstream ahead of a storm event, so that they have extra capacity in that pond during the storm event.
So I did get to see, I think, the email that was sent regarding your property and the sewer. So let me reassure you of one thing we're going to do. We're going to take a look at every one of those items. I don't think any of those requests are out of the ordinary or anything unreasonable. Wanting to see what's out there in the field, that will be best for you, and to be quite honest, that'll be best for us too. So if we can help and maybe look where those fields are. I did see the flags the other day that were out there, show you where the temporary construction easement, even put on the ground where the pipe is going to be, so you have a better idea of where we're going. Absolutely. I think that gives you a visual of how this project is going to look. Even the end of the guardrail, I was talking to Darren also, maybe even show you where the state would require us to put the metal beam one that would extend actually further in front of your home. So we've been trying to condense this project so that impact to the adjoining property owners is as minimal as possible. That's number one. Number two, part of my job here in town is to monitor the weather. Our construction projects that we have ongoing, when we have inclement weather coming, whether it be snow or rain, we are in contact with our contractors to make sure of one thing, that the system that they're working on out there functions properly during a large storm event. So if there's stuff that's in that way of a larger storm, larger than 2 years that we see coming, there's going to be something in those construction documents that requires them to open up that channel as best they can so that the water can flow through. I think it's critical, especially in a flood zone, to make sure that you have those type of procedures set in the contracts and the contractor knows what he has to do.
Did you have any questions?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Good evening. My name is Rolf Oben. I reside at Orchard Lane in Darien. I'm a member of the RTM Public Works Committee. One thing I'd like to get clarified is what role does FEMA play in the design of the bridge?
What FEMA does, right? FEMA throughout the country has established flood zones under the National Flood Insurance Program, and they've passed the administration of those flood zone, the flood program down to the municipalities, right? So every municipality has a community official, and that community official is in your planning and zoning department. FEMA, they set regulations in terms of how much rise you can have as a result of a project. And that's the definition of floodway. It's basically the point that you can encroach into a waterway and the base flood elevation will not increase by more than a foot. The requirement, FEMA's requirement, is no rise requirement if you're doing work within the floodway. So if you're doing work within that floodway itself, you're not allowed to increase the base flood elevation at all. It's actually defined as 0.00. So what we did as part of our permitting process, right, in our initial discussions with the state, is that we prepared a hydraulic report that demonstrates that we're not increasing the base flood elevation. And we did that by maintaining, the hydraulic opening pretty close to what it is now, as well as some very minor stream improvements. And the other thing also that we've, because it's a box culvert, right, the roughness coefficient, right, so that changes the amount of friction. But based on all that, we put it into a hydraulic model, and we're able to demonstrate that we're not increasing the base flood elevation at all, meeting FEMA's requirement. And the other piece of that, too, is we're actually showing a very, very slight decrease, like around the 1/100th and 2/100ths of a foot. So it's not going to be noticeable, but we do meet FEMA's requirements.
Now, there's a freeboard built into that as well, is there not?
That's correct, yeah. And the freeboard is actually more of a state requirement than a FEMA requirement.
Okay, and this is designed to have a 1-foot freeboard, or do I understand that correctly?
That's right, correct, a minimum of 1 foot, which we do meet.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't mind, just indulge me. So this bridge is being built to a 50-year storm, a 25-year storm, a 100-year storm? Which is it?
I believe it's 100, right? Yeah, no, right, yeah, the FEMA analysis is 100. We're not overtopping in the 100.
Okay.
Yeah, I see, right.
So if we have an extraordinary event, like we had 2 years ago, Ida and Isaiah, or I can't remember. Elsa. Thank you, Elsa. That's going to exceed 100 years.
Elsa was a 50-year event, the July
Okay.
9th event. The September 1st event was a much larger event. That was about a 200-year event.
Okay.
So in a storm like that, you could see some overtopping. But the design of the storm frequency for a particular bridge is governed by the watershed area and how much traffic uses the roadway. If we were to, for example, design this particular crossing for a 200, 500-year event, you end up with a hydraulic opening that's much bigger.
Much bigger,
and you're letting
yeah.
more flow through the bridge,
Right.
and that would have a negative impact on your downstream properties.
Downstream, okay, all right, I certainly understand that. So if I understand you correctly then, the actual, if I may say, elevation of the bridge is pretty much going to be the same as it is now.
Correct.
And it's because we don't narrow the roadway in any way, people driving on the road will basically experience the same thing they experience today, other than going around the protections that are there now.
The barrels?
Yes, thank you, the barrels, yes, the warning barrels, okay. And you said we're already clear with deep, so that's good, okay. And I assume that there are, maybe there aren't. There were no pilings in the 1936 bridge. We are using box culverts, so does that negate the need for a piling?
It does.
Okay, so these must be pretty strong.
It's the configuration with the floor of the culvert that allows us to
Negate the need for a piling?
not use piles. It also actually makes the structure much easier for the town to maintain because they don't have to worry about checking underneath the bridge for a scoured out
Scouring or
foundations.
anything like that?
Right.
Okay. And will there be, how many box culverts do you think are going to have to come together to deal with the expansion of the bridge?
So there's only one large cell. It's an 18-foot box, which is on the upper range of what you can achieve with a box culvert.
Right, you can get them only so big, right?
Right.
So it's one big box.
It's one big box. It will be made of multiple segments. And once it's all assembled, all you'll see is the one opening.
Okay, so it comes in parts and is put together on site.
Correct.
This is going to be interesting. Okay. Does planning and zoning get involved with this at all? Because of the easements that are involved and that sort of thing?
The Board of Selectmen will get involved because of the easements.
Okay,
EPC
Right.
will be representing planning and zoning with the permitting phase.
okay, okay. We talked about the budget. Okay. Oh, this is more for you, Ed. When we first voted on the appropriating for the design work, okay, one of the questions that came up was the fact that this bridge was last inspected in 2016. It was an older bridge, and that we should possibly consider reevaluating the inspection schedule, particularly for older bridges. Have we done anything along those lines since the bridge has shown failure?
For this bridge or the
Or,
town
no,
hall?
just for the town in general?
Yeah, we have gone and looked at some of the other bridges. Other bridges we had some issues with. You're aware that we've made some changes and upgrades on Old Kings Highway South and
Yes.
so on. There are some other in place that we are looking for funding this year to start doing some further repairs on the substructure also. So yes, we did do some more. The state's going to be coming around for another round of inspections again soon. That'll complement what we've been doing, visually.
So some of the improvements that you just mentioned, are they going to be in your budget for next fiscal year?
There is one that's in there, yes.
There is one that's in there now? Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Feel free.
All right, folks, if there's nobody else that has any other questions, I thank you very much for coming out. Hopefully it's informative. My email, Darren's email, is on the website for Public Works. If you have any questions, our phone number's on there too. Please call us. I know Darren's been in touch with the adjoining property owners. He will continue to do that. As you saw our schedule, it's pretty aggressive because of our need to finish I want to finish before school next year opens up. That's the target. And as an aside, I joked with Darren a little bit, but when we shut this road down, I know it's going to be an inconvenience. Darren and I have a back and forth on whether you folks will allow us to open it after you enjoy the dead end that we create for you. So, but understand that we'll both be on the project on a daily basis. If things are going on out there, I tell you now. I'll tell you before we start also, please get a hold of us. Don't get angry. Don't get upset. Don't sit at home, letting it fester. Please let me know. I'll be the first one out there to talk to you about it and make sure that we can address whatever's going on out there. But hopefully we'll get this thing on target and get this thing out to bid in February. Thank you again for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you.